She was 13 years old, and a girl that she trusted deeply convinced her that she had a gift. So what did she do? She stood up and sang in front of 200 people, and she only found out afterward that everybody was laughing. That moment didn't just embarrass her, it rewrote the entire script for her. Be whoever you have to be to belong. What followed for this incredible guest was a decade of trying to disappear into someone else's version of quote unquote acceptable. And my dear friend and this incredibly powerful woman, Jennifer Hill, is on the podcast today. And she tells that story, but also tells what it took to finally become herself again. I'm excited to get into this because to go from that to the world that she's living in now and the results that she creates, this one is worth a listen. And I promise you, just one note from this episode could change your life and change your business. And if anything in this episode lands, or any episode has ever land, it would mean the world to me if you hit subscribe, because it's the only way that you can keep showing up and you keep getting notified of new episodes. So please hit the subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into today's show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show, home studio again, pink whiteboard behind me, and my feet not on the floor. That might mean nothing to you, but today's guest and I is a friend, and we realized today that both of us have the same proclivity. When we sit in chairs, we don't want our feet on the floor. So we are forever adults who think that the floor is lava, and that has nothing to do with today's show, except I feel so incredibly seen and validated because we just spent 15 minutes talking about it. And she's like, are your feet not on the floor? And I'm like, that's me, 100%. And so it's actually a perfect segue into who today's guest is, because in my opinion, she is the queen of connection. She is the queen of seeing people, of hearing people, about understanding people and connecting with people at the deepest level. She craves connection. She gets her joy bucket filled by making incredible connections with people who belong together that God guides her to make. And she has had massive success doing it. She's been an entrepreneur, executive coach, and speaker with over 20 years of experience. She's been recognized everywhere you can imagine, the big names, the BBC, ABC, NBC, Fox, E! News, all those things. And there's no reason that you wouldn't expect that, because the most important thing for me is that every time I talk to her, every time I email with her, every time I get an introduction from her, my heart is full, I feel seen, and I feel so much hope for humanity because people like Jennifer Hill exist in the world. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce my dear friend Jennifer to the show. So Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
George, my fellow no feet on the ground, otherwise we will melt to death in lava. Yes. We're just laughing so hard. Since I was in first grade, I remember getting yelled at by Mrs. Donas, my first grade teacher. Then my parents were like, honey, you have to put your feet on the floor. No, you can't make me.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, I was like, no one's ever said that to me. I'm like, you can see my knees sitting in my chair like a child. I'm like, cannonball. Best way to podcast for me is in cannonball form.
Same. Yeah, that's why it's just like, you know what? I love George. I get to meet thousands of people, and I love just being self-expressed and raw for years. Like, you know, that first grader who's told bad Jen, naughty Jen, don't do that. That does not adhere. And it's like, I remember when I got diagnosed as being autistic about probably 8 or 9 years ago now. And at first I'm like, I'm not autistic. I was like, I've hired a ton of autistic people and I have autistic, but I'm not autistic. And then when I found out I was autistic, I was like, oh, wow, yes, I am wildly autistic. And then it gave me the freedom to put my legs up on chairs and be my weird, funky self. And I just stopped trying to turn myself into a human pretzel. And now I have more friends that I know what to do with. When the first half of my life, it was like everybody else got a book on how to be a human, the rules, spoken and unspoken. Don't put your feet up. That's not allowed. You know, do this, don't do that. And so I didn't get people for the first 20 or 30 years of my life. And it's only been in the last decade and a half that I'm like, oh, people are these adorable little things. They're not misbehaving at all. They're just not self-expressed, and it's okay.
It's such an interesting place. I'm actually going to change what I ask you now, because just hearing that, I feel like it's so resonant and so true. Like, you have so much experience in this game. And I know for me personally, it's like every interaction I have with you, or everybody I know that knows you, shares one thing in common. It's like a glowing review. It's connection. It's like, I feel seen. I feel safe. I feel like I matter. And you've had quite an illustrious career as an entrepreneur, but illustrious meaning like rich with experience. You can label them however you want: positive, negative, hard, easy, but like, you've put the reps in. And I'm just curious of like, where did we start with Jen and like, how did we get here with Jen? Because here is a beautiful, beautiful place with a lot of beautiful things emerging. But I think context for everybody would be huge.
Yeah, thank you, George. So when I was a little girl, I started off just carefree and wild and playful, and I loved directing Aladdin musicals on rollerblades in an imaginary way for like with the neighborhood kids, just anything that
A
allowed
whole
me
new world.
to see a whole new
Whole
world,
new world.
a new fantastic point of view. I
I
literally
love I love that movie.
Me too. My husband and I were literally laying in bed the day of his birthday and we're singing. We'd love to take lyrics to like Disney songs or like The Little Mermaid. Don't get me started on what is it? Look at the stuff, isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collect? But we instead will say, look at this coffee cup, isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think the gingerbread makes him complete? And we literally just used to laugh and sing. And so what's interesting about all this, George, is because I didn't know I was on the spectrum, so I started off just carefree, self-expressed, singing, dancing, running barefoot through the fields with my slobbering Rottweiler Cole, right? And just dancing with abandon. And then something happens, and then you get made fun of, and then something else happens.
Mm,
And I'll always remember I was 13 years old in Mrs. Ferguson's, I must have been in like seventh grade English class with a friend, Diana, a friend, and I couldn't tell, not knowing I was autistic at the time, I couldn't tell when people were being true friends or if they were making fun of me. It was like I was like American Idol before American Idol existed. So here I am and I'm singing my heart out like we're just going into the lunch hour in Mrs. Ferguson's class and I'm singing Janet Jackson's song again, which was like a chart topper back in the day, right? So I'm singing, I heard from a friend today, and I started singing all this, right? And this friend, Diana, says, oh, you have the best voice. You should sing that in front of more people. But I don't know that she's being facetious and making fun of me. So, long story short, George, she gets me to sing in front of 200 people to the point where security guards are there. And then I only find out afterwards that everybody was making fun of me. It was like how I didn't go
mm,
carry at that
mm.
point in my life is beyond me. And that's what sent me into a new world where not in a positive, a whole new world, but a new script that got written that said, be whoever you have to be to belong. And then I met this girl who was everything I wasn't, beautiful, magnetic, popular, one of the prettiest girls in our middle school. And she was also dangerous. She was, wearing a skirt. She shoplifted like a trophy, and I was enthralled. And so when she took me under her wing, I was like, oh, this is how you make friends. You be a jerk to people. You're mean and you ignore them. And I just became her little minion, her mini me. And that led into 7, 8, 9 years. I became bulimic for a decade. And I don't blame this on anybody else. It was all my choices that led me
Mm.
100% to where I am. So I could be the person that I get to be, that gets to give unconditionally to people. I had to go through this process to learn self love. So after a decade of throwing up 20 times a day, drugs, alcohol, self hatred, you and I have tapped in on that
Mhm.
before. My ex-husband very graciously introduced me to a personal development class when we started dating when I was 23, and that really catalyzed me over the last 20 years to start looking inward, and I just had a profound epiphany with some of my clients lately. So I do a lot of work with entrepreneurs and executives and
Mhm.
ultra high net worths and different people like that. And a few years back, I was working with an old client of mine from the legal industry from the first company that I sold. And she reached out to me on Facebook and she said, Jen, I've been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and they've only given me 3 months to live. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And people know me as a resource. People know to reach out to me, whether it's alternative healing. Somebody just messaged me right before this. What resource do you have for whatever the ailment is, right? That's like my brain is like this repository of people, resources, connections, right? So she says this to me, and I said, well, I have these healers, and they were all, 300, 500, 700 an hour. And she said, Jen, I'm so sorry. I can't afford that. Do you have anything else? And I said, well, I just learned this methodology from a top thought leader. I said, I'm not a healer, but I can try and teach it to you and see if it makes a difference. So I've discovered in the last 7, I would say, years or so, 6, 7 years, because I spend 2 hours a day, George, in prayer and
Mhm.
meditation, as you and I talk about, I talk to God every day. I've become so deeply connected to myself and to everything and everyone around me that about 6, 7 years ago, people's souls just started telling me stuff. And I was like, huh? Like, I remember I'm sorry, did you just like say that? And then people are like, no, I didn't say that out loud. How do you know that? I'm like, your soul just told me that. So this all started happening 6 years ago. And I was like, WTF? Like, literally, I had no idea what was happening. But it started to happen more and more. So this woman and I get on a call and love her to pieces, like dear, dear friend, an old client of mine. And we start talking and she's in tears. She's like, Jen, please, anything. I'm like, well, I can try talking to your soul and see what it says, right? And so I drop in. I don't ever do it without permission. So sometimes people's souls will yell at me, even though I don't request it, and say, help, please. But I'm like, normally I don't try to cross that line. So she says, of course, feel free to talk to my soul, right? So we drop in and her soul tells me she didn't deserve love. And I hear this. And so I teach her in real time this technique. It's like a brain gym sort of technique where you cross one hand over the other and one ankle over the other, and it syncs the right and left hemispheres of your brain. And it's insane, George. In a matter of minutes, you can literally rewire, reprogram decades of limiting beliefs. So she goes into position, she's sobbing. We get to the bottom of some abuse things that happen. And this whole call takes about 30 minutes from beginning to end. And I don't know what's going to happen. As far as we know, she has 3 months to live. And so I said, please, anything else I can do, just reach out, call, text, please let me know. And a month goes by and I didn't hear from her. And I reach out and I'm like, are you okay? Do you need anything? I'm like, I don't want to say, are you alive? But that's what's going on in the back of my head. And she reaches out, she said, Jen, I didn't tell you. I said, tell me what? She said, I went back to whatever the big name hospital was, Stanford, one of those. And she said, I went back and they said, oops, we misdiagnosed you. There's zero trace of the stage 4 cancer we said would kill you. And I was just flummoxed. I was like, oh my God, she's still alive to this day. Thank you, knock on wood. Thank you, universe. Thank you, everything. So something came to me in the last week that was like a strike of inspired lightning from God and from source. And another friend of mine was recently going through cancer and I was talking to her and we were going through a few different things. And then I realized it's the deserving of love, that it's a limiting belief that many of us as humans, it can manifest, unfortunately, and things like cancer or other ailments we might experience, that so many of us, George, have this core wound, whether it might be our parents, bullies, childhood, traumas we went through, but at some innate level, and this is the first place I'm sharing this publicly, is that we all have a core limiting wound that we don't deserve. Some of us, maybe 1%, 5%, 10%. My friend who originally taught me this had said to me originally that about 90% of people had a limiting belief of not being lovable. But when I go deeper with clients into it, and the more than kind of checking this out and seeing how it lands, it really resonates deeply that so many of us feel we don't deserve love.
Oh my God, there's so much here. And I'm going to start at a very, very easy end pass with this one. Because I've been doing this for about, 18 years now. So similar and close. And I would submit that even in the Marine Corps, this was true, to where like our performance and our posture in the world is completely predicated by our relationship with ourselves when we're not in the world. Right. And this is something that you spend a deep amount of time in. But even hearing your story, there's a person listening of like, how do you go from, me as well being bulimic for 15 years of like purging and drugs and treating people horrendous to like now loving yourself? Like, where does that gap come? Like, how do you start to heal that? And, we hear this and I have these conversations every day with people, but I still have people listening like, oh my God, that's woo-woo crap. Oh my God, like, what do you mean I gotta love myself? Oh, self-love's just something that people throw out there. And I'm like, it's not. And so like, what do you say to those people? Like, I think your story is so powerful of like going from where you were to like even hearing the softness in your voice and the way that you communicate now and the level of empathy that you have. Like, what was that journey or gap like for you to start to build that relationship with yourself?
It took somebody telling me I was an asshole, frankly.
Ditto.
I think you and I
More
have
than one.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And there were many people who told me, but I just couldn't hear it until this one woman. So here's the story. I have a book coming out later this year called The Recovering. And this woman, I know, right? Like you can go to anti-prayer.com. If you go to anti-assholeprayer.com, you'll get my anti-asshole prayer and you'll also get on the waiting list for the book. But long story short is the recovering why do I say this? So here I'm 23. Remember how I said my ex-husband, when we were together, introduced me to personal development. So people say, how big of an ass were you, George? Do you want to know? Should I fill in the blanks for the audience right now? So
It was
I'll
giant.
I'll give you the precursor to the woman who radically changed my life. So the precursor was my ex-husband started to get into triathlons very early on into our dating. And I remember it was like some morning in September. And if you know anything about people who do Ironmans and triathlons, it starts at an ungodly hour at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., right?
Yep.
So we're early on into our dating, right? And we're early on into our dating, and the night before, I'm having fun, I'm raging, I'm partying, and I am in a pissy mood. If you know anything about this, and if you've ever drank a lot, your ability to be empathetic directly decreases comparatively to the amount of alcohol or drugs you've consumed the night before. So he's about to go for his first race ever, and he got a new haircut that morning. And so he's all like wetsuited up. I'm like, ew, what did you do with your hair? I don't say like, congratulations, good luck. Like, this is a few weeks before my ultimate transformation, right? So let's fast forward. So in around August of 2005, I'm autistic, so my brain loves dates. And he's been pushing me now for months to do the stupid personal development class that his best friend bought, he and his brother. And you know those people who stand on a soapbox like, you do this and the end is nigh in sight or else, you know, right? And so he's standing on a soapbox and I'm like, you can't make me. The 3-year-old inside of me is like, you know, I'm being a jerk about it. So this goes on for a few months. Finally in August, right before I take it, I'm like, you know that stupid thing you've been telling me about for months? He's like, yes. He's like a little puppy dog. Yes. I'm like, I'm going to do it to prove it's a cult and a crock of shit. He's like, fine. He's like, they'll still transform you. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I show up day one of this 3-day weekend class the next month in September. It's in a beige room outside of LAX with 150 souls waiting to get their lives transformed. And the guy who's co-facilitating the class is standing up front. And he says at 9:30 a.m. as we're getting started, he says, does anybody have any questions before we jump in here? And I said, like, my hand goes up. He's like, yes, you out there in the Von bitch t-shirt? And I was literally had Von bitch emblazoned in magenta across my ample bosom to make it perfectly clear why I was there. And I said, how would you respond to the fact that this, meaning the class, is a cult? And he looked at me, gave me a little side eye and a chuckle. He says, if it is a cult, it's the best damn cult you'll ever join. Next question. And I sat there, George, stewing in self-righteousness and being what I call a judgy bunny towards everybody else in the room. Like, people are getting breakthroughs with their families. People are getting breakthroughs in their relationships with their parents. And I am just sitting there seething. Now, in the midst of all this, I am doing drugs constantly. I'm drinking way too much and I'm bulimic and I'm literally throwing up in the middle of the class. But I'm like, I have my figured out. These people have problems, right? So I'm sitting there doing all this. So the class culminates and your friends who have already graduated get to be there to cheer you on and celebrate and say, good job, you transformed. There was only one problem though. I had just been like basically wearing earphones, so I wasn't. I was just like tuned out the whole weekend. So my boyfriend and his friends are there and it's the culmination of it all and celebrate. And the woman who was co-facilitating with this guy, a tall Aussie woman, comes up to me at the end and says, are you going to do the advanced class? And I looked at her. I said, sweetheart, darling, it was stifling enough having sat in this room the last 3 days. Do you really think I would put myself through this hell again? And she looks at my boyfriend who's sitting next to me and he shakes his head and does like the cut sign with his right. He's like, don't get me started. It took her 8 months just to do this one. Now, this, George, was the moment that my life changed. So he says, don't get me started. It took her 8 months just to do this one. I looked at him and I said, this is an at-will relationship. You can leave anytime you want. The woman looks at me and she says, can I be really straight with you? And I said, sure, darling, you go ahead. You be really straight with me. She said, you are a nasty thing. You are one of the most powerful women I've ever met in my life, except you know what? You're like Godzilla with a huge tail swinging behind you, knocking down buildings wherever you go. Except guess what? Those aren't buildings. Those are people whose lives you're destroying. She looks at my boyfriend and says, leave her. It's what she needs, and walks away. Fast forward, I'm in my office the next day and I'm like, my whole world exploding head emoji. I'm like, what just happened? Like, am I in this sort of alternate? I thought I was a good person. I donated, I was charitable. I was like, I'm a good person in my own mind, right? So I go into the office that I'm working at the time. There's about 25 people, and I'm already pretty successful there. And it's our morning meeting. I'm like, I kind of sheepishly raise my hand. I'm like, guys, before we get started, I have a question. Everybody looks at me, and I'm like, maybe have I ever been condescending or demeaning or mean or rude to any of you? The office goes so quiet, George, you can hear a pin drop. And then this one woman, Adrian Barbie, laughs and bursts out laughing. She's like, Jay Hill, you are only the biggest bitch we've ever met, and we have no idea how you're successful. And that was the beginning of my journey. And it was still a year and a half into doing that personal development work where I finally had the aha moment. This was a very embarrassing time. So I used to struggle so much, George, with just wanting to feel wanted. I mean, how many of us do
Mhm.
that? We have this desire, almost stronger than a desire for nicotine or drugs or heroin. It's like this desire to be seen and wanted
Mhm.
and belong is visceral for most of us. So here I am, and I've been doing this personal development work and I've been making changes in my life, but I still haven't put the pedal to the metal. I still haven't given up drinking or any of that stuff at that point, or at least scaled it back. And so it's about a year and a half in, and my boyfriend was 8 months further along, and he was doing like their advanced leadership class with his brother. So he's over at my house one Saturday night. Sunday morning rolls around, and he says, "Okay, Jen, I'm going to go. My brother's teaching this class." I said, "Oh, can I go?" I'm like a little puppy dog. Please, can I go? And he said, "No, you're not advanced enough. So sorry, you can't go." So he leaves my house at around 12, goes over to where he and his brother live, and I start binging and purging. Open a bottle of wine. I drink half a bottle of wine. I order pizza. I eat that. I order ice cream, and I am just wallowing in self pity at this point. And around 2 o'clock, this is long before the days of Uber, around 2 or 3 o'clock, he calls me and he says, Jen, Max, his brother, doesn't have a fifth person, and he needs a fifth person to be able to reach this next level. Even though you're not at the level we need, we've gotten special permission that you can join us. Can you be here? Now, I'm half tipsy. I've been throwing up. I'm so ashamed and feeling guilty about all this dangerously, but I did it. I got in the car and drive the 2 miles over to where he is. I get to the house, and part of the exercise is you go through this thing like what's not working as well as you'd like it to do, what are your feelings, beliefs, etc. So what's not working as well as it is. I was so ashamed. I only wrote down health. I'm clearly not going to write drugs, alcohol, bulimia, all the things. And so his brother, who I really owe so much gratitude to that man, his brother goes through and takes us through this small little intimate facilitation. And at the end of it, you know what happened, George? I had this aha moment. What if who I was being was disciplined? And if who I was being was disciplined, then the rest of it would work itself out. And that day forward, I never threw up again.
Mm.
Mm.
We had the same personal development experience, by the way.
Ah, that's crazy.
In the intro, I was like, this is BS, and you're just selling me on something. And then at the end of it, this 5 foot woman stood me up named Lisa Cowman. I love you, Lisa Cowman, in LA, and
Ah,
it was like, hey, by the way, you have nothing but a trail of dead bodies behind you, and you've convinced yourself that you're loving them.
what?
And
Wait,
she's
did
like,
you do Landmark too? What was your personal development class?
so it wasn't Landmark. It was a derivative of LifeSpring. It was called World
Oh,
Works. It was like
oh,
the
I've
intro
heard of
had
that
like 36 experiences. The advanced had like 88 experiences, and then leadership was more. And so it was all experientially based on top of all the distinctions, right? Like we played all the same games, red, black, lifeboat, all those things, except we had to experience them. Then we had to teach them. So I went through this whole thing, and I like tried to cheat my way through, lie my way through. She just ate me for breakfast, and I ended up staffing it for 2.5 years. And
What?
that's where it hit, because I got voted the Jonathan Livingston Seagull on the third, like the advanced one. And then they voted me as like the class leader. And then she's like, I'm going to let you go handle the fact that you got voted this while you lied your way through. And what I did is, the contract that you have to write, the 12-month contract. Well, in my contract was required community service. I
Hmm.
won every single goal, and I paid somebody to go do my community service for me. And
Ah,
so
I love it. I
I
thought I was
didn't,
an
I didn't complete. And she's like, I'm going to let them raise you up at the end of the day. I'm going to let them celebrate you because you enrolled more people. You did everything. Look at you. You crushed. And then it brought me to my knees, and I just self-loathed. I self-spiraled hard because I'm like getting emotional thinking about it. I just wanted so hard to be seen, but I was doing all the wrong things to be seen. It was all
Mm,
performance instead of connection. And so then I was like, what do I do? She's like, we're done with you. She's like, there's only one path. If you want to serve, if you want to support us, you're going to have to learn, but it's some humble pie. And then I
mm,
staffed so many trainings in a row while I was being an entrepreneur. Well, most people knew me as the food blogger who was scaling that brand and speaking. And like, I was still struggling with all that stuff. And it was doing those courses and like, truthfully helping some of my best friends go through it and
mm.
realizing like the responsibility I had and how people felt around me. And like, I wasn't just a wounded Marine. Like, there was a lot that I took from that life and career that had influence, but I was not using it for good. And so it's
Mm.
literally same experience hearing you talk about. I'm like sitting over here. I'm like, oh my God, Jen,
We're
like
both
high
sitting
five,
here with our legs up, and we're
our
like,
legs up on the chair. Um, and I actually want to talk about it because it's so profound for people hearing this. Like, we all have a journey. And I know for me, the amount of dissonance that existed even after where I like thought it was impossible to be a good person. I was like,
mm,
everybody showed me this. And then I think I've probably felt guilt for a good 5 to 6 years.
mm,
And most of my behaviors after those courses and teaching those things were then reactions to guilt, not actions out of inspiration or choice. So it was like I was reacting now, like it was like whiplash, like emotional whiplash. How do I make all of this right? And there were things personal development said to me that only God could really heal in me. And I know this is
mm.
like an experience that you've had as well. And so I'm curious, like how you, when they're like, you're the biggest biatch ever, like in the office, like how do you go from that to this? Like, what was your process? What was your journey? What did you focus on?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. I'll share with you why. Two parts. So at the time I was studying at Landmark, which was that first personal development class I did, several of my friends, shout out to MJ. She was my hairstylist at the time, and she also introduced me to something called Agape, which is Michael Beckwith's spiritual non-denominational church in LA. And at the time, I'd gone so far away from God. When I was young, I used to seek so deeply. I would go to Mormon church, I would go to Christian church, I would go to Catholic church, just put me in any church. That's how deeply I
Yeah.
desired and yearned to be like one with the Creator, right? And so when I went to the dark side and I realized that doing all this good and being a goody two shoes wasn't cutting it, and I'll go to the dark side and sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all of that, right? I go to that dark side and I had moved so far away from God. I forgot what God was. And I remember music has always been a catalyst for me. Even when I would go to these Christian youth groups when I was a little girl, I remember just
Yeah.
sitting there in front of these A-frame windows and tears would pour down my face at this. And there's such a beautiful song that Michael Beckwith does called Use Me, Oh God. And so it
Hmm.
is magical. So that then sets me into, oh, wow, I can come back in a new way and rebuild this relationship with God, with Source, with my higher self. So this all begins, and I start building my company, and I'm still trying really hard not to be an, but I still don't know I'm autistic at that point, and I can't figure out why everybody else is being stubborn idiots because I still remember deep, even when I started coming back to God, start studying, I didn't have any teachers or mentors to help me understand that we're all designed differently, that we're all just these beautiful array of people who have different desires, hopes, wants, needs, and expressions of ourselves. Some of us like our feet up on chairs, some of us are repelled by that. Okay, who cares, right? So, deep into this, I start building my first company. And I'm just laughing because I sent an email. I wish I were kidding. In the subject line, it literally said, all in caps, all in the subject line, are you all a bunch of morons? Why are you not working harder, faster, smarter? I'm so sorry to all of my old team members that I used to work with. I apologize. Please forgive me. Thank you for being in my life so that I may love you. I was, I mean, big, 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 huge, right? So this all happens. And around that time, I got introduced to Julian Adler through a couple of my girlfriends who became my business coach. So Julian gently started to nudge me towards different spiritual tools. He taught me about human design. He helped me that somebody I almost fired became the person who took over my company when I sold it because of all of his mentorship and introducing me to tools to better understand myself and the world. This is a part that's going to tear me up. So 14 years ago was around the time three things converged all at the same time. I get introduced to Julian. He's my first ever business coach. I start studying Kabbalah, which was instrumental. It's like predates all religions. And that was like deep dives into the Bible and understanding the meaning of it and codifies it, right? And at the same time, one of my team members, Sharon, introduced me to transcendental meditation. And that's what began my 14-year journey of doing TM every single day. Now, I just found out, George, 2 nights ago that Sharon took her own life and she died. And I was reflecting and I was like, oh my God, we worked together at the first company that first company where everybody was telling me I was a jerk. And we worked together at that company. I had to call that woman Adrienne Barbie and try to tell her the other day that Sharon died. And, but having a connection to source and a connection to God, and that really emerged out of one of my teachers, David Guillaume, who's one of the top spiritual thought leaders in the world right now. I was very fortunate that on my journey of studying Kabbalah, David was the one who said, talk to God every day, talk out loud to God. So I start building this spiritual practice that's now evolved into 2 hours every morning, from talking out loud to God for the last 20 minutes of my practice, to doing transcendental meditation for the first 30 plus minutes of my practice, to heart focused breathing by heart mat, to inner child work. There have been so many extraordinary teachers that have brought me on this journey. And it's been this amalgamation of what I call spiritual soup that has brought me back to God, back to myself. And now I do everything in my power to share this with everybody I know. And I was giving a keynote in Florida at a family office event in January. I was keynoting around the US. And around this time, I'm always sharing from stage about this list of 180 tools that I use for myself, for clients. And 5 or 6 people came up to me after my talk, they're like, I want your list. And I'm like, oh God, if I try to share with you my list, it's like Jen shorthand of like all my favorite tools, right? So that day I actually sat down and I collated everything into a readable list that people could actually understand and not be like scratching their heads about, right? And I published it on LinkedIn. So it's on my featured LinkedIn section. It is there for all of humanity. I want nothing from you. It's just there as a gift, as a thank you to all of the teachers who have come before me and anybody who wants whatever direction you want to go spiritually.
What is your LinkedIn so everybody can search it? We'll link it in the show notes, but just because you just said that, what is your
Oh yeah,
LinkedIn?
it's Jennifer K. Hill. So I think it's LinkedIn / Jennifer K. Hill. But if you Google my name too, Jennifer K as in kite, Hill, Hill, then you'll find my LinkedIn on the page 1 of Google on the top.
Okay, I love it. And then what was the website for the book coming out for the A-hole prayer?
Oh, it's called antiassholeprayer.com, all one word, antiassholeprayer.com. That's been something funny is people say to me all the time, I run this group called the Jen Hill Tribe that's 345 entrepreneurs, thought leaders, bestselling authors, podcasters around the world. And it's just grown and grown. And people are like, how do you not have any in this tribe? I was like, I say the anti-asshole prayer every day. And so after time, so if you go to antiassholeprayer.com, you put in your email, you'll get the anti-asshole prayer, and you'll get my 21 favorite morning mantras, which includes the anti-asshole prayer and other things I
That's
say
number
to
one.
connect to God and myself. Yes.
I love it. I'm telling everybody because I'm looking at it right now because I'm like, these are things that like one of the things that I love about you so much is you said this earlier, your discipline, but your consistency with it, right? Like it reminds me of this. God, I heard a pastor talking about this the other day because one of the things I struggled with because of what you said earlier about like not feeling worthy or not feeling lovable is that my behaviors would then self-isolate and remove from the things that would be me loving myself or expressing that I
Right.
knew that God loved me. Right. And you're
Yeah.
so consistent with your daily time and your rituals. And I realized that I need a structure. Like I'm a product of structure. And I believe that like my purpose on this planet is to love God with my whole heart and to allow myself to be fully loved by God, because when the intersection of those two is I can be a gift to the world. But I like look at this and I'm like, oh my God, like if I just look at this every morning, like I'll go to pray and sometimes I have to remind myself, pray out loud. Like he wants to hear from you. And I'll like walk laps around my house and like touch something. But there's this weird thing where it's like, if I'm in front of 500 people, I will pray out loud for all of us. I will pray about myself.
Say it. Yeah.
The moment I'm alone, I'm like, I can't say this out loud. What do you mean? No way. And I'm like only judging myself. And I'm like, it's such a tiny, tiny thing, but it's also so profoundly impactful for me. So like seeing these, so I want everybody to go to that link because it's really, really good. And I'm going to give you a taste right now because I love the anti-a-hole prayer. And this is me being in
Yeah.
integrity with God and not swearing, but it's God, please remove anything or anyone who is not in my highest and best good and give me the wisdom to recognize it is happening for my good while drawing the right people and opportunities towards me.
Yes, and I will take it even a step further. One of my dear friends and mentors, Arthur Samuel Joseph, who trained Tony Robbins and others how to speak, always trading prayers because he talks out loud to God every day too. And he has a business deal he was considering doing. And I taught him to do the same thing. I also say, anytime I have a business deal, dear God, if this business deal is in my highest and best good, their highest and best good, and humanity's highest and best good, then please lovingly remove any and all obstacles from the deal going through. If for any reason it's not my highest and best good, their highest and best good, or humanity's highest and best good, then please lovingly repel my ability to work with them and draw the right people and
Mm.
resources towards them and me. And that's just been life changing to be able to use all of these tools and to share them with the world. I mean, I just talk out loud. Can I give your listeners something else fun that I do?
Always, girl. Always. I got you. The stage is yours. You know I love you. Like, let's go.
Oh, I love you too, my friend. All right. So one of the other things people say is like, what does God sound like? I remember my husband and I, because my husband's more like he feels God in his body, and that's okay. Some people, it's more of a somatic experience. That's totally okay. For me, it's more auditory, where I actually can hear God's voice or the voice of God. So my husband and I are walking by the river one day in Lisbon, and he's like, honey, what does God sound like? And I was like, God, it's just like a voice that's so quiet and so soft, and it's not male, it's not female, it's just like the voice, right? And so, why do I share this? Because how do you know if you're talking to God or your ego? This has been an interesting thing that people always ask me. So, a couple things I like to share with people on this. One, if you're hearing your ego, it's on loudspeaker. You can hear it really clear, like, you're not enough, you suck, this is a bad idea, whatever, this is a good idea. It's on loudspeaker. That's how, number one, you can tell it's your ego, not your higher self or God. When you hear a voice that is so soft, you have to really, this is why I talk to God right after I've meditated and done inner child work and heart focused breathing, because the stillness is so quiet that I can tune into the frequency of God, right? And we're still human, right? And if you're tired, hungry, angry, something else, you get interference in the same way you would with Wi-Fi or something like that, or a radio station. So the other thing that I've taught a lot of people and mentored my clients and others on is to cross-check the validity of what you're hearing from God and your intuition, your higher self. So every morning I have what I call questions for God, and I literally have them pre-written, whether it's a business deal I might want to do, is it in my highest and best good to do this, whether it's a partnership, a new client to take on, whether or not it's to join George for the show today. I ask God questions, and it could be 10 or 20. I don't get on a plane. I've literally canceled the flight same day. If God says don't go, I was just supposed to be in Israel 2 weeks ago, right before the war started. I was divinely guided, and God said, don't go, cancel. And it was a very important trip that we had to go on. And I was like, okay. And thank God my husband trusts my intuition and my ability to talk to God. And he's like, we're going to lose the money on it. We're just going to cancel all of it. And we were divinely protected, because right when all the bombs started falling was when I was supposed to be there celebrating my birthday. So what you do is you write down the 10, 20 questions, whatever it is that you want to ask God or your higher self. And for some of you, it might feel somatic in your body. You might want to just notice what a yes or a no feels like and how it feels. If it feels expansive or contracted in your body. For some of you, it might be like me, where it's more an auditory thing. And then here's the kicker. You write down at least 5 questions of things you can empirically validate after the conversation with God. So I write down 5 things. It could be something as simple as, will all my meetings happen today? Yes or no? If no, how many will be canceled? I check things like the price of certain stocks or coins or things that as soon as I finish, that's one of the first things I do to check how empirically accurate it is. I might ask, I'm trying to think of what I was asking. Oh, because I run this group called the Gen Hill Tribe, we have new members joining every day. So a fun little thing I'll do, I'll say, "Ooh, did anybody new join since yesterday?" And I like this morning I heard yes, and turn up, I was like, "Oh, amazing. We have a new tribe member. That's great." And so I'm constantly checking anything that I can empirically validate, at least 3 to 5 empirically validatable questions. If you don't know what to do, pick a stock. It doesn't even matter if you trade, just pick a stock. Is the price of Amazon, Tesla, up or down today? And then I will fine tune that question. So today my intuition was so accurate that not only did I get the price of things to the nose correct, I got like everything. So on the days where I get 80, 90% accuracy on how clearly I could hear God, my intuition, my higher self, those are the days where I make decisive, important choices.
It's so good. One of the things I've said on this show so many times, and I say this about myself, is that I've learned that the devil yells and God whispers. And
Uh-huh.
that's the easiest way that I remember it. And, you actually hit an important point for every Christian in the world, too, if you're listening to this, that the Bible even tells us to test the voice. what you're
Yes.
talking about, to test it against the word of God, to test it against wise mentors, spiritual leaders, right? Like there's no secrets. Like the God doesn't speak in fault, blame, guilt, or shame. Like God speaks in righteousness. And
Mm.
sometimes our ego fights it because we're like, oh, I don't want to give up that hobby. I don't want to give up that habit, right? But it's not what's in our highest and best. And so I love the way that you broke that down. It's so good. And it reminds me too, because I have a question about your golden triangle. But one of the things that I realized is that even as I went from being that gigantic butthead into like trying to be a man of God and like spread love and have people feel love in my presence, that there was still some performativeness that came with it of like, well, now am I loving you the right way? Am I giving it enough? Like, do you know my virtues? Do you know my values? And I heard a pastor talking about this a couple weeks ago and it really landed. He's like, listen, he's like, there's like two ways to live. There's one where you make a shoe and you put a cross on the shoe. That's what everybody thinks is godly. And he's like, but the real thing to do is to make the shoe as perfect as you can so they feel God in the shoe. And I feel
Mm.
like I went through this
Wow.
stage of almost like I'm no longer this. I'm this. I'm this. I'm this. Like I'm love and I'll help and I'll serve. And it was almost like reactive, but really I needed to stop speaking and I needed to start bearing fruit of that. And that quote always reminds me of that. And there's something that you talk about every day with like your golden triangle. And I realized for me, only when I hit that golden triangle can I produce fruit. If I
Yes.
don't hit that golden triangle, I'm telling people what fruit I'm planting, but there's nothing coming off the tree. So can you talk
Whoa.
about your
Yes,
golden
yes, yes.
triangle?
Yeah, so this is what I discovered, and it's all been trial and error. People ask me all the time, George, how did you discover all this? And I tell them it was out of survival. I literally was
Mhm.
not going to make it. I tried to take my own life 3 times between 18 and 21. So I had deep compassion when I heard Sharon did, because I've been there. I've been like, oh, I've just been in the grips of despair in my own personal hell. So, how I came to find this out is the connection to self is what 100% of us are missing. I have a lot of dear friends who are ultra high net worths, and I don't care how many billions of dollars you have in a bank account, how many yachts or jets or companies you've built or sold, or how famous you are. I've had many famous friends as well. If you don't have that connection to self, so others is over here, great, you might have millions of followers, great, whatever. But if you are not deeply, intimately connected to self, then the ability to connect to others in purpose falls down like a house of cards. And this is where you hear people having midlife crises or an inability to create intimacy or issues with their children or issues with friendships and an inability. And something that I strive towards every day is I don't suggest to anybody anything I don't do to myself. I'm literally using all 182 of these tools. That's part of the reason I love to coach is I love to do it because then I get to always keep my tools fresh. Like sometimes one client will inspire one of the 180 tools I haven't used in 6 months. I'm like, ooh, like my divine download comes from God. It's like, ooh, you need to use this tool. I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. Thanks for reminding me of that. And so the more deeply we connect to ourselves, intimacy, that's where intimacy comes from. When we're intimate with ourselves, then everybody else in the world falls in love with us. I teach so many people I work with inner child work. Even doing this, try this, George. Wrap your arms around yourself and give yourself a hug every day. If you do nothing else, if you get nothing else from today, holding yourself every day and telling yourself you are loved, you are cherished, you are accepted, you are beautiful, you belong, you are intelligent, you are caring and giving. I teach everybody I know how to do this. And it's life changing. It takes 20, 30 seconds
Mhm.
every day, and science even shows us. It literally
Mhm.
has been empirically validatable. And I'm being called to share a story with your listeners, George. So I love parables and stories because as much as I'm giving you all these techniques and George and I are talking about the stuff, stories is what really sticks with us. So years ago, one of my teachers shared this story. About 300 years ago in Eastern Europe, there were these three wise sages, and their only job was to traverse the furthest parts of the world and collect the stories of the meaning of life that would uplift and inspire others. Now, this is long before the days of cars or electricity, and so they would traverse long sojourns over and over, right? And one day they happen upon this village, and as they're entering the village, there's the one tavern in the village, right? And as they're walking by, they notice this weird kind of shimmering light coming from the doorway of the tavern. And this is long before the days of electricity, and it doesn't seem like candlelight. It's too early for that. It's midday. And they go in, And there's a man sitting humbly at the bar eating his midday stew. And this man seems to be emanating some sort of glow. And so the sages are like scratching their heads and say, "Did we ask?" And they're like, "Yeah, we asked." So they go up and they approach the man at the bar and they say, "Beg your pardon, sir, but we are sages and it is our job to collect the wisdom of the world and to disseminate it to all of humanity. We can't help but wonder, there seems to be something a little different about you that not everybody else has. You seem to be glowing. Beg us, please forgive us for saying so." And the man just very humbly shakes his head and continues eating his midday stew and says, "Alas, gentlemen, you are mistaken. There is nothing special about me. I'm just a humble man sitting here having my midday meal. I wish you all a safe journey." And they're like, we're not often wrong about this, but okay. So they decide to spend a couple extra days in this particular village to see if they can investigate it. So a day goes by and they come across again the same tavern, the main place where everybody goes to eat. And there again, this man is sitting at a table, once more eating his midday stew. And you can see this glow emanating off of him. And so once more, they approach his table and say, "Beg your pardon, sir. Again, alas, we meant to leave on, but we were so intrigued by your situation. Is there anything you've thought of that you might do that maybe the rest of us don't do that could help humanity?" And again, the man buries his head in his stew and says, "Kind sirs, kind gentlemen, I wish I could say that there was something special. I have spent much time reflecting on your inquiry yesterday. And after much reflection, I've thought I try to be a good husband, a good father. I pray, but many people pray. And alas, I do not think there is anything special. Safe travels, gentlemen." And they're like, "Oh gosh." So they spend one more day in this village. It's the final day. They're about to leave this village, never to return to the same village again. And one last time, there's a man sitting by the window, and it's the same man, and the light is just glowing off the window through him. And so one last time they beg of him, they're like, "Please, sir, we will never return to your village again. Was there anything, even if it's the smallest little thing that you do, maybe a prayer, anything you do or say that maybe the rest of us don't do, a ritual?" And he shakes his head and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. There's nothing that comes to my awareness. Safe travels, gentlemen." And they're crestfallen. The sages turn around and they're about to leave the tavern, never to return again. And then the man raises his finger and says, "Well, there is one thing." And the sages are back at his table, rapt with attention. And he says, "Well, there's this one thing." They're like, "Yes, yes, what is it?" And he says, "Every night before I go to bed, I say, God, if you know that tomorrow I will wake up and I will reveal the light you intend me to reveal, please wake me. But if you know that tomorrow I will wake up and I will not reveal the light you intend me to reveal, please don't wake me. And thank you for every gift and every obstacle and every opportunity." And I will tell you, George, since I learned that 5 or 6 years ago from my teacher, I have only had the courage to say it probably less than 100 times. But I will tell you, George, on the nights where I've had the courage to say that, I say it. That's why I can't say it without crying, because I say it, even just
Mhm.
uttering the words is just very meaningful for me. When I say that, I wake up the next day and I've had some of the greatest miracles in my life, my husband's life, other people's lives, because you wake up with this renewed sense of purpose and joie de vivre and meaning in life, that you've been blessed with another day to reveal more light than you ever have before.
Mhm. I,
Sorry.
you don't ever have to be sorry. I have so many deeply resonant feelings right now, and one of those things, and you just said something out loud that I haven't had the courage to say out loud in ever really, which is, sometimes when I pray, my heart and my mind is telling me to say something that I'm afraid to say out loud because I'm still attached to my flesh, or I'm still attached to that story, and I just love your courage and saying, like, I've only had the power to say it out loud like 100 times, because I live in this world where, like, I understand, like, my whole purpose now is to spread the kingdom and spend eternity with God and with people I love, and to teach them these things. But then I still wrestle with the flesh every day. I wrestle with the bad day, the friends in the hospital. My best friend's dad died today. I got 2 texts on this podcast that I saw come through, like, have to fly home, best friend's dad died. Like, there's the
Mm.
human and then there's the eternity, and my brain doesn't understand, right? It can't even comprehend eternal love and heaven and God. And so, like, you saying that is so big. And you know I think there's something underneath all of this, and it's a very interesting time we live in. And I want to ask you about this because we've already talked about on the show connection, self love, intimacy, self-reflection, like self-forgiveness, and like both of us being very outwardly focused a-holes. Let's just call it that, to a non-gentle form. And there's all this undertone. And I think the way that I would summarize all of this is like really being willing to fall in love with yourself, but to also learn how to fall in love with yourself.
Mm.
Because, we talk about inner child work, and what I've realized is like that's reparenting myself in the way I wished I was parented so that I could feel that and have those things. And so there's this premise where we see it thrown around so often, like, oh, you got to love yourself. You got to have self-love. But I think when I look at the world right now, what I see is people being convinced the places they're giving their time and energy is for self-love, but it's for the opposite. It's distraction of self, using technology, posting on the internet, like getting this feedback loop from the world. And it's like so misguided, in my opinion. Like self-love is like, go lock yourself in the woods for 30 days and don't leave until you're just in pure bliss with yourself. Not like, what does Instagram say, or what does technology say, or the people that are like, AI is coaching me on loving myself. I was like, it is a non-empathetic machine. Like, can we not? Right. And so I'm curious for you, because I love hearing you talk. Like, how can people come home to themselves? How can they fall back in love with themselves? How can they spend their days and their times? And you've shared so many tactical things already, but I'm like, if you could put it in a pretty little picture for me.
So I'll tell you the first thing I teach people when it comes to teaching the golden triangle of connection is heart focused breathing by heart map. I had the privilege
Mm,
and honor of doing a TV show with them in 2020 during COVID, and I wasn't familiar with their work. They've been studying heart brain coherence for about 40 years, since 1990, probably longer than that almost now. And the idea is that we have these three parts to our brain, George. In the lowest part of our brain that I'm pointing at right now, for those of you listening, is what's called the amygdala. And that part of our brain is the part of our brain that's responsible for fight, freeze, or flee. Then we have the mid part of our brain, which is the mammalian part of my brain. Am I safe? Are you like me? Can I trust you? And then we have the prefrontal cortex and neocortex, which is capable of love, intimacy, connection, creativity, imagination. However, what most people don't know, George, is that the higher brain cannot function until the lower brain first feels safe. So the reason so many of us are walking out there, and it's like Don Miguel Ruiz put it so beautifully in his book, I cannot recommend enough, called Mastery of Love. He said humans are like people walking around covered head to toe in third-degree burns. And if we get too close to one another, we touch one another, we screech and react with like fear and like we've just been burned again, right? And so, how do we then solve for this problem? Well, what I love about this, and it was so moving when I had the pleasure and honor of doing the show with them, was we were talking to doctors and nurses who were helping all the patients of COVID during that time, and it was heartbreaking. But you know what got them through it? Was a simple technique to move out of that fear, that flight, fight, fright response,
mm.
and into their capacity for compassion, love, and connection. Would you like me to teach it to you and listeners? It's very easy.
Like 100%. There's not a better way to land the plane today. So let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So, bringing it all back with heart focused breathing by heart math. So, here's a simple way to do it. Now, for those of you who might be walking, driving, good news, you can do it with your eyes open. When I first start training clients on it, I do encourage them to do it with their eyes closed if they can, just to get in the habit, and then turn it into a habit. So that way you can do it in real time when you're triggered by the news, by a family member,
Mm.
by the loss of somebody. So, whatever state you're in, if you can shut your eyes, I invite you to gently do so. And if not, you can go ahead and keep your eyes open during the process and even be doing this as we're walking if you'd like. So go ahead, for those of you who can, gently shut your eyes and begin to focus your attention in the area of your heart or chest. Imagine that your breath is flowing in and out right through the center of your heart or chest, breathing a little slower and a little deeper than usual, finding an easy rhythm that's comfortable for you. As you continue allowing slow, deep, heart-focused breaths, imagine that your heart itself is doing the breathing and that the breath is flowing in through the center of your heart or chest and out through the center of your heart or chest. Now, on the next inhalation, George, I'm going to invite all of us to breathe in calm. Imagine a time where you were somewhere peaceful or calm, where you can really connect vividly and viscerally to the feeling of calm. Maybe you're on a beach somewhere, walking in the woods, or with a loved one. Wherever that is, I invite you to breathe in that felt sense of calm right through the center of your heart or chest. And then breathe out calm and radiate that calm to everything and everyone around you. Let's do that 2 more times, allowing another slow, deep, heart-focused breath, feeling calm light up every cell of your body. And once more, radiating that calm to anybody you're holding in your heart right now who might need it. And one more time, let's allow one more slow, deep, heart-focused breath in through the center of your heart or chest, feeling calm permeate your entire being. And once more, let's pulse the field around us with calm, with love, with whatever you choose. So we come back into the here and now, begin to feel our feet upon the floor, if our feet are on the floor or upon the chair, if they're on the chair, and begin to wiggle our fingers and toes and come back into this moment.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, how you feeling?
I love that. I'm like, thank you. My favorite thing to say is one of my favorite quotes is a student says, I already know, and a master says, thanks for the reminder. And so I'm saying thank you for the reminder of a practice that gets to come back into my day and into my time. And for everybody listening too, I want you to notice just how simple that was, but also want you to notice if you feel different, how you feel different, and how easily accessible that was. And so even if you want to start doing this and maybe you feel like you can't do it on your own, then just come back to this part of the recording and just listen to it again. Save it as a shortcut on your phone of like heart breathing with Jennifer. Her voice is very soothing. And so you can just save it at this minute mark, which is like roughly around 55 minutes or so near the end of the show, and you can just listen to it and reflect on it and utilize this time. And I love that. And I love how simple it is, right? I think the invitation, and I say this on the show all the time, is that, you know, at the end of the day, I notice with a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, is I felt so lost in my life because I was running, avoiding the one relationship I was guaranteed to spend the rest of my life with, which was
Mm.
me. And we know in our friendships, we know in our romantic partnerships, it's like, well, this is my primary love language. I want quality time. I want touch. I want, you know, words of affirmation. And I was like, well, in order for any of those to be effective, we have to apply them all to ourselves. And so that means talking out loud to ourselves. That means spending quality time with ourselves. That means touching ourselves and hugging ourselves. That means giving words of affirmation and speaking in the mirror while we hug ourselves and loving, like, you deserve this and you did this. And the playbook has been laid out for us, but we live in a world that doesn't tell us to focus it on the place that matters first, which is ourselves. And this whole conversation just felt like this beautiful reminder with story and invitation and tool and tactic, but also belief on like how to start doing that. Because at the end of the day, it really is the one thing that we can control, is how deeply do we love ourselves. And so like, I just wanted to say thank you for being you and sharing and making me feel so seen, and us being the same person in so many buckets. And I'm like, oh my God, okay.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And if you don't mind, I just got out of what you shared, I'm called to share
Mhm.
the thing that I wrote the day before my birthday when I was supposed to be waking up to bombs. Can I share something with you in the audio
Please,
close? So
please.
here's what I wrote the day before my birthday. The day before my birthday. Today I was supposed to wake up in Israel. Instead, I'm sitting with my husband, hearts heavy, watching what's unfolding between Iran, Israel, and the US, and feeling the fragility of it all. Through what feels like sheer grace, we heard the rumblings of what was happening and postponed our flight. We have family and dear friends in the region. Our hearts are with them and with everyone there now. None of us knows who will wake up tomorrow. None of us knows if we ourselves will wake up. And when the world feels this uncertain, this volatile, this heartbreaking, I turn to a Kabbalistic teaching that has always pierced me. Any evil we witness in the world is a reflection of what lies unhealed in our own hearts.
Mm.
It's confronting, it's uncomfortable, and it's also empowering. Because while I cannot control geopolitics, while I cannot control missiles, I cannot control leaders or nations, I can look within. Where am I harboring anger? Where am I at war with myself? Where am I withholding forgiveness? Where am I choosing righteousness over compassion? If peace is to ever exist in the world, it first must exist within all of us. So the day before my birthday, this is my wish, that we each pause, that we turn inward, that we make peace in the only place we truly have authority, our own hearts. May we soften where we've hardened. May we forgive where we've been gripping. May we choose understanding over being right. And may the peace we cultivate within ripple outward further than we can see.
I wish I asked where to connect with you before you read that, because I would have literally just ended the show right there. Like hard stop, no outro, like boom. That was incredible. That was beautiful. I'm going to go listen to that again. And I absolutely love that. So in the spirit of landing the plane, there's a lot of places to connect with you, and we've already shared some of them. We have LinkedIn, which you have your 180 tools linked. We have
Yes.
your Don't Be an A-hole prayer, which we gave the link to that
And
already. We'll have all these in the show.
byasshole.com.
Yeah. Anti-aholeprayer.com. And then we have the J Hill Gang, right? Tribe, right? Which is you being the,
GenHillTribe.com.
is it Jen Hill? It's genhilltribe.com.
Yeah, that's where our group, we have 345 people around the world. It's amazing. It's just the most extraordinary group of humans in the world.
I love it. Like the queen of networking and people just like you resonating together. I imagine it's like overwhelming how much love is in that
Yeah,
group. Like if this is
I'll
you
say
and there's 345 of you, I'm like, break my nervous system with love. Just break it. Like I surrender. Take it, shatter it. Let's go.
yeah, that's the idea. Our secret name for it is called the Love Club.
The Love Club. I absolutely love it. I love it. So if you're listening to this, if anything, and I mean anything that Jennifer shared resonated, if it tickled, you heard me say this, but it tickled a little bit or it landed, at minimum, tell her, send her a message on LinkedIn, shoot her an email and let her know. If you have any questions, let her know, but also check her out. Like get the anti-a-hole prayer, because now there's an incredible book coming back. So if any of this resonated and you might be in the George and Jen club of like former recovering a-hole, which is me as well, then we'll have a book to kind of guide us through from the queen herself, who led me into my courage to share that today. But most importantly, I think at the core of all of this is like we've talked about connection. And I think that the true purpose of all of us is to love ourselves so deeply that we can love others, but none of it was designed for us to do alone. And so whatever that thing was today, use it as an invitation for connection with yourself, connection with God, connection to somebody else that you have been meaning to connect with or have fallen out of connection with. I just think we are all surrounded with opportunities. If we tune out all the noise and we tune into God to listen, he'll guide us. And there's only positive things on the other side of connection. And so, Jennifer, I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show, for being you, for being my friend, for crying, for sharing so openly, for doing all the things that you do in the world and blessing everybody with your presence today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, George. It was an honor and privilege to sit here with you and be with you with our feet up.
With our feet up, they've been up. My feet are asleep right now, but I'm comfortable. So when I go to stand up in a minute, I might fall on the floor, but I was comfortable stuck against my desk with my feet up on the chair. So it's perfect.
My friend, kindred spirits.
Kindred spirit. So for everybody listening, this has been another episode of the Mind of George show. You will either hear me in your earballs, or you will either see me in the next episode or hear me in your earballs. But either way, we are out.